Hey guys! I don't know. Today I am having really bad anxiety, so I decided the most productive thing and thing that would make me feel better would be to film a video because I really enjoy doing it. Filming my last video, I felt a little bit more comfortable in front of the camera, so I'm just trying to get myself used to it because I want to continue making videos instead of just making one and then disappearing for however long. Oopsies. I am going to be reading Let's Not Meet stories, but Christmas themed. And basically what it is, if you don't know, people just post really crazy, creepy things that have happened to them, and basically they all end with so-and-so, let's not meet again, because it was so crazy, or, you know. Okay, so this first Let's Not Meet story that I am going to read is called Christmas in a Hunting Cabin. And it's a little long, so I really like storytelling types of videos because sometimes it's nice to just put on a video and just listen to someone tell a story. It kind of takes your mind off things without making you think too much. It's basically like an audiobook, but so I really like them, and I hope you enjoy this. So this happened at Christmas a couple of years ago, when I was spending the holidays with my parents and little brother along with my cousins, aunts, and uncles. We live in a suburb in Ontario, and we were venturing out into the woods for Christmas, an idea that my parents had for a while. They always loved the idea of being out in a hunting cabin during a Christmas with their families. I'm a 22-year-old female, but at the time I was newly 18 and my little brother Tom was 11. We're really close and do everything together. We also had a dog, a German Shepherd called Trigger, who came along for the ride too. He's a real softie, but can be really overprotective, especially of my brother Tom. Anyway, we left from our house on Christmas Eve at about 2 p.m. and climbed into our dad's truck, filled with all of our stuff and presents for his extended family. Tom and I were really excited, winding each other up, and our parents were having friendly conversation as we moved along the road. We arrived at the village near the cabins we were staying in and caught up with my dad's sister Billy, along with her husband and 3 kids. They didn't converse for long, but Billy was a bit unsure of where to go from the village to get to the cabins. So my dad helped her out by writing down the directions. We soon got back on our way and arrived at the cabins at around 4 p.m. There were a cluster of them sort of spaced out around the woods. Each family had a cabin each, and there was one where everyone could meet up with a pool table, a swimming pool, and all sorts. Dude, that sounds like fun. Where is this again? Oh, also, I'll have the stories linked below. I lost where I was. I found it. Anyway, the weather was already really cold when we arrived and the snow was falling all around us. So as me and my brother unpacked our things into the cabin and settled in for the night, my dad started a fire whilst my mum made our dinner. It was great. The Christmas decorations were already up and we played a few board games as the night got darker. Dad, Tom, and I decided before coming on the trip that we'd go hunting sometime, so we planned to go the next day. I'd been a few times with my dad, but this was Tom's first time. He was only there to watch us, though, as he was too young to shoot. It reached about 10 p.m. and my brother and I were getting a bit tired, so we decided to go to bed. My dad kept his rifles in a bag which he kept under the bed I was sleeping on. He'd usually keep it in a locked box, but thought there was no point since we were going hunting the next morning. Tom and I were sharing a room at the end of the cabin, facing a flowing river. The view was beautiful. Tom and I fell asleep with our dog, Trigger, laying at the bottom of Tom's bed. Now, this is when things begin to get creepy. It was about 3 a.m. when I awoke to Trigger growling. I didn't find this particularly unusual because my dad suffers from insomnia, so sometimes when he can't sleep, he sits in our sitting room at home and watches some TV. Like I said, Trigger is extremely overprotective and growls at any noise he hears, but that's when I noticed that there was no light coming from under my door. My dad never just sits in the dark. I whispered to Trigger, telling him to be quiet as Tom slept, but his growling soon turned to barking, which woke Tom up. He asked me what was going on, but I said Trigger must have heard some deer or something outside. After all, we were in the middle of the woods. Suddenly, our bedroom door swung open and the light switch was turned on. I did it again! My eyes stung as I tried to focus on whoever it was at the door. It was my dad. "Were you two laughing just now?" he asked as I turned to look at Tom, his eyes wide and his face pale. "No," I replied as he moved over towards our curtain, pulling it back as he looked out into the pitch-black wilderness. "What are you looking at?" Tom asked as our dad closed the curtains again. "Nothing. Just go back to sleep." I was kind of creeped out that my dad didn't say anything about what he was doing, but he turned our light off and we tried falling back asleep again. Of course I couldn't. I was wide awake for the rest of the night, flinching at pretty much every noise. It was about 4:30 a.m. when I finally drifted off, but it must have been moments later. I heard strange crunching noises coming from outside our window. I was sure this wasn't some sort of animal. It sounded like footsteps. I had this overwhelming feeling of fear, and I pulled the covers over my face, sweat beginning to cover my forehead. I then heard a faint tapping on our window, which lasted for a good few minutes. I was so petrified I couldn't move. Trigger was awake by this point as I saw his face turned towards the window, his ears pointed and listening intently. The tapping started again, but getting louder this time, causing Trigger to bare his teeth. What happened next was the most terrifying thing that has ever happened to me. "I know you're in there, little guy," this deep, husky voice whispered as a horrible shiver went down my spine. "Why don't you come out here and play with me?" Initially, I was filled with rage. I thought it was bound to be one of my cousins playing a stupid prank on us, so I leaned forward and peeked through a gap in the curtain, ready to give them hell for scaring the shit out of us. But standing there wasn't any of our cousins. It was a creepy old man who was around 60, his hair matted and his clothes looking dirty and ancient. He was stroking the window with his hands, breathing on it as he spoke. I went into protective mode. I didn't know what else to do, so I grabbed my dad's hunting rifle from under my bed and pulled the curtain back. "Get the hell out of here or I'll shoot." I felt adrenaline rush through me as the creepy man's eyes widened and the most terrifying smile appeared across his face. Trigger began barking louder, "Yeah, Trigger," than I have ever heard him bark. My parents obviously heard the commotion and came running through to our room. Turning the light on, my mom screamed as she saw the old man through the window, Trigger fiercely continuing to bark at the man. My dad yelled at the man, telling him that the police were on their way, but the man legged it back into the woods. Tom was petrified, but I was angry more than anything else. How could some sicko do this? I was extremely glad I had the rifle. The cops caught the guy just a few minutes later and arrested him. I found out a couple of days later that that creepy man was homeless and living in the woods, and he was suffering from a lot of mental issues. It scares me to death to think about what could have happened to my brother if I hadn't been there. We spent the remainder of Christmas Day at the cabin, but we stayed in our Aunt Billy's cabin overnight. There was no way we were sleeping in our own after what happened. I do not blame you. We went home first thing on Boxing Day and never looked back. What's Boxing Day? My dad only told me the other day that he knew someone was hanging around our cabin, so he intentionally left the rifle under my bed in case I had to use it in self-defense. He did that because he didn't want to scare any of us. He called the cops after he heard the guy laughing outside of his bedroom window, singing nursery rhymes. He knew it could take a while for the cops to reach the cabin. Safe to say, that was the scariest experience of my life. So, weird, creepy old guy in the middle of the woods, please, please, let's not meet again. Oh my god, I would be absolutely terrified. I would never be able to sleep next to a window. Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm so glad you had that gun just in case something worse happened, and I'm glad that your dad was smart enough to put it there and to call the cops right away. Okay, so I'm going to read one more story. Okay, so this Let's Not Meet story is called Christmas Shopper. I am not a writer, so please forgive errors and that this may not flow as well as I would like. I am doing the best I can. A little background first. This happened about 4 years ago. At the time, I was around 8 months pregnant, so very noticeable, and was doing some Christmas shopping at the local mall. It was around 9 at night. I finished up my shopping and headed out of the mall towards my truck. At this mall, there is a road that goes around the mall, and parking is on the other side of this road. Therefore, you have to cross the road to get to the parking area. As I am leaving the store, I happened to notice a man standing in the middle of the road. He looked in my direction and made eye contact. I looked away and kept going. At this time, there are 2 men that walk past him to go into the mall. He never looks at them or says anything to them, but kept his eyes on me. I noticed that he started to walk in my direction, but I just keep on strolling to my vehicle. Then I hear, "Excuse me, can you help me?" Being Southern has its downfalls, and one of those is having it ingrained into you to be polite. I simply just asked, "What do you need?" He looked around and said, "Could you help me start my car? I think my battery is dead." I may be Southern, but I am not that polite, nor am I stupid. Please remember that I am very much pregnant, and a woman walking alone in a parking lot. If he was really having car trouble, is it likely that he would ask a pregnant woman for help rather than 2 men that had just walked past him? At this point, I know it's time to go, so I just say, "Sorry, I can't help," and keep on walking. A little faster this time, though. I still see him out of the corner of my eye following me. I have my keys out and I'm ready to go as soon as I make it to the truck. He's still coming. "You really aren't going to help me? I just need a jump." Again, I say, "Nope, sorry." Finally, get to the truck, unlock it, and jump in. He is practically running towards me now. I lock the doors and try to get the key in the ignition, but I was shaking, and at that moment, the damn key just would not fit into the ignition. He gets to the truck and hits my window, saying, "I just need your help for a minute." Now I'm starting to get angry and yell, "No, get the hell away from me." He grabs the door handle and tries to open my door and screams, "Just open the door." Here is where I lost my cool and made a split-second decision. I have my concealed carry license because there have been other reasons that I needed protection that I will not go into here. I did have a .38 special in my console that I do know how to use. When he tried to open my door, my only thought was to protect my child and myself. I rolled the window down, grabbed the .38 and pointed it right in his face and said, "I'm not going to tell you again. Get the f*** away from me." He stood there for a moment in shock, I am sure. In that moment, time stopped. I didn't know what he would do, but I knew that I was ready to use this gun if he made any move toward me. He didn't. He didn't say a word. He turned and ran. I know I should have gotten the hell out of Dodge then, but I couldn't. All I could do was just sit there in shock. I was terrified of not only what he may have done to me, had I not felt that something was wrong, but also that I just had threatened to kill someone. Not a situation I ever want to be in again. However, should it happen again, I still have that .38 and it is loaded and ready to go. So man at the mall, I hope we never meet again. Damn. I am so glad she had that gun. Wow. And I'm so glad she got away from this man that was obviously trying to hurt her in some way, or who knows, in this terrible world. But it's also a beautiful world, and I hope you enjoyed this video of little Let's Not Meet stories. I don't know, I just find story times like super relaxing, and you could be doing something else while listening to them, and I don't know, they're just nice. So I wanted to make one, and I don't know if anyone needs it. Take someone's mind off of what's going on in the world right now. That last story messed me up. That last story messed me up. Say goodbye, Drax. Say, I hope you have a wonderful, beautiful day. Say goodbye. But I will say goodbye because I am polite and I actually can. Bye.